And welcome to the African Mirror section of Newsbeat. Every week we talk Africa on African Mirror. This week we have a look at the outgoing African Union Commission Chairman Moussa Faki. He bids farewell to the African Union Executive Council after serving in the chair for the prescribed amount of years. Online is Dr. Paul Kariuki, Executive Director of the Democracy Center at the University of KwaZulu Natal and convener at the Africa Policy Circle. Dr. Paul Kariuki, welcome to Newsbeat.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, and good afternoon to your listeners.
It is interesting. We're seeing the departure of Moussa Faki, the chairman. An interesting tenure he's had, hasn't he? Because lots of things have happened while he's been in the chair at the AU.
Exactly. It's been very challenging for him. And remember, this was his second term. His first term was actually between 2017 and 2021. And then he got re-elected for a final 4-year term, which ends now this year. But it has been, both terms have been characterized by challenges on the continent, some positive and some not so good. And he had to brave, especially in the last second term, he had really to brave himself for addressing humongous challenges that, almost exposed the AU to be too close to be an ineffective organization in terms of responding to issues of peace and conflict on our continent, food insecurity, and economic ineffectiveness, and of course, just supported by climate change challenges, which really severed the food insecurity problem that has been persistent on our continent. So it has not been a smooth sailing term for him, especially the second one. But we always say a good dancer knows when to leave the dance floor, and I think he has heeded to that wisdom.
Indeed. And, just looking at what he's had to deal with, 4 coups, Mali, Sudan, Burkina Faso, and Guinea, the Sudan problem being the most pressing one at the moment. It must be a terrible inbox to have on your desk when you come into work each day, not quite knowing what's going to be on it, whether there's going to be a coup or whether there's going to be a disaffected election. Climate change, it really is a tough call, isn't it? But especially the coups, because that really turns things upside down.
I agree with you 100%. It's not really a position to envy. I'm wondering whether those who are really rallied up for it, what are they looking for? But an email is too long. It's a WhatsApp. It's a message on X, that country X is on fire, leader one in this other place has been shot, or the other one is organizing an extension of presidential term. And then another thing you hear, there is a section of people in a country X who have not had food for several days. Then you hear there is another country X, people have been forcefully been removed because of insurgency. You don't even know which task to choose for each day. And probably that is one of the challenges of that has really crippled the office of the AUC in a way, to be seen as an effective office that has teeth, so to speak, to rein in some of these challenges that are very undemocratic. For example, the undesirable extension of presidential term limits. We've seen the AUC chair has not been able to confront his colleagues and say, you can't do this. It's anti-democratic. We've seen where countries have finally extended the constitutional term limits. There is no voice from the AUC. When it comes to conflict, it's those kind of almost look like generic, do not reply kind of a message. We condemn these kind of actions very seriously. We do not want conflict in Africa. We want it to be peace. It just looks very generic. We've not seen countries being held by AUC seriously responsible for destroying livelihoods, for loss of lives, and other anti-democratic process of encroaching each other's countries, territories, with no consequences at all. So it's a very challenging position to speak about it. We thank God that he has, lasted his term, but I think he has seen many stuff that he will not want this position again. He is very happy to let others come and run.
Indeed, but at least we've seen some consistency. A man doing 2 terms of office. He was a consistent figure. I will definitely testify to that. And of course, the grace, as you so correctly say in the beginning, of knowing when to leave. And of course, where do you think a person like Moussa Faki goes from here? Because I think he has a lot to offer in being what we in Africa would call an elder. He's seen a lot of things. He must be carrying a lot of wisdom in his chest.
No, definitely, indeed. We got to give to him the fact that for the majority part of his both first and second terms, he has seemed to be interacting with different heads of state at a very diplomatic level, paying attention to some individual country challenges, some of them regional challenges, and meeting these heads of state at very personal spaces, which is really incredible, because that shows also another level of leadership, because not all things can be done behind a desk. Somewhere along the path, somebody needs to meet another person and have conversations at a very individual level. And of course, out of all these challenges that we're mentioning, he has gained a lot of wisdom and a lot of insights, and I'm sure he will be available to offer the incoming AUC chairperson and the deputies some guidance on how, first of all, to strengthen internal operational systems of the AU itself as an organ, because the challenges I've just outlined there, partly some of them is because of the inertia, internal bureaucracy, where various AU organs don't speak to each other in terms of the work and the vision of the AU in that way. And so the incoming leadership will have to deal with that, because without that internal cohesion, it's very difficult to promote a vision that can be bought by everybody else and be given equal political support by member countries. Secondly, he has also gained a lot of experience around managing conflict, even though there has been, certain quarters of analysis saying that it has not been enough to stop or deter, conflicts eruption on the continent. He probably has other ideas that we are not amenable to, or we do not know them right now. And definitely there is wisdom that has gone with that, because it's balancing different forces. It's not easy to step into this conflict, ideas with just book knowledge or head knowledge. An effective leader understands the balance of forces. What else is playing around this area that has a historical bearing to it, and if it's not managed properly, can cause an eruption and maybe even more losses of life, and cause maybe even a regional instability. It requires different insights, and I'm sure he will be very handy to come through to support initiatives that really promote peace and conflict, because that actually has taken more than 3/4 of his time in trying to put it off, whether it's insurgency in a country X, or it's an extension of presidential term in country Y, or it's actually an eruption of internal conflict that is now spilling into a regional context. All these are various dimensions of promoting peace and security on the continent, and they require multi-stakeholder approach, including working with the presidential, offices in these countries to make sure that you can manage conflicts like that. And as we know, this doesn't happen overnight. So some of these conflicts are more than 12 months long. That is eating already into your chairpersonship term. So by the time this conflict seems to be subsiding, you're actually on an election. So it's really very challenging, but I'm sure there will be a very powerful space for him to continue supporting the incoming leadership with his wisdom. And I think also on the global perspective, because he was part of the team that was advocating that Africa be given at least 2 permanent seats in the United Nations Security Council, for a continent like ours that represents more than 14 billion to 1.4 billion people. We surely deserve a voice on that kind of a setup. And he was one of those leaders who are really promoting Africa's inclusion. So we wish him well, and we hope that he stays around to be consulted for that kind of intervention and guidance, as well as also taking a very much well-deserved break from the demands of our continent.
But Dr. Kariuki, in the meantime, we are taking away Moussa Faki's rocking chair. He can't quite have it yet. There's still work to be done.
You said it. There's a lot to be done.
Dr. Paul Kariuki, Executive Director of the at the University of KwaZulu Natal, convener at the Africa Policy Circle. Thanks again for joining us for another version of African Mirror. And of course, it's the same time next week. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Shafiq, for having me on the show.